You are now listening to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. We preserve the history and sport of hunting through curious conversation and action-packed hunts, as well as offering you tips and strategy for more successful hunts. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. This is episode number 133. I'm your host, Christian Babcock, and I am joined by, I'm Jake from the last episode.
My name's Jake.
How you doing, Jake?
Oh, could have been better.
Always could be better.
I guess. No.
Are you doing better now that deer season's gonna roll off the edge of the earth in this weekend, and now you're not gonna have to worry about it anymore?
After this weekend, even though it's like already hopeless in a way, it's just like there's always that weight lifted off your shoulder. Even though I'm almost like pretty much already done, it's just like once the season officially ends, it's like I don't feel obligated. And it's just like even if I wanted to, I couldn't. So legally, yeah. Unless you want to go Charles Beatty on it, but yeah.
Oh God!
Drop me off.
That'll make a good set of rattling horns. That's funny.
What we're going to talk about today?
Well, we're going to talk about some recent hunts that we went on. We almost forgot to talk about these, but we did some late season hunting in Kansas. This could be our last Hunt Talk episode of the year. I'm actually going to go try to shoot some does this weekend. I hope it's not the last one, but yeah. So we had that giant cold freeze across the country. What was it? 2.5 weeks? Oh yeah. Squall.
Oklahoma learned a new word. So
yeah, Lauren told me you shouldn't be going hunting in the middle of a squall or a snow squall. I was like, first of all, what does that even mean? I've never heard that word in my life. Apparently, it's a large amount of snow. You learn something new every day. But that was the week of Christmas. We wanted to do some late season hunting in Kansas. For you guys that don't know, Kansas actually closes at the end of the year. So December 31st, Kansas season cuts off, and we're used to being able to go to January 15th. So it also opens a little earlier, so that's okay. But yeah, we had that massive snowstorm. The temperatures got down into the negative 20s, I think. Is that right?
So yeah, you get down to like the negative single digits, but the wind chill is in the negative 20s.
Okay, yeah. So Jake and I decided, like, we've done a lot of hunting in Kansas this year. Dude, more than I care to even think about that we've done. We did so much hunting in Kansas this year. But we did a ton of early season, a good amount during the early part of the rut. So we decided, hey, one last hoorah. Let's put on our boots and let's go try in Kansas. What were you expecting in Kansas? Because, by the way, every one of my family members was like, there's no way you're going to Kansas today. You'll die on the roads. And we're like, no, we'll give it a try.
Yeah, if we were filming the way there, I don't know if you got any clips of us driving up there, but
I definitely did.
Literally, we could probably sell that to Ram and they'd pay us big bucks to make a commercial for them because it did good. But yeah, we got up there. We had to drive like half the speed limit the whole time, but it was cold. Like I think that was the coldest I think I've ever been. Not like, at least for like the wind hitting the face and like the bare spots of the skin. I was like, I don't think I've ever felt this before because when we were kids, me and you went hunting at the Ponderosa. Do you remember that time? And you shot a doe and it was like negative 1 or 2, I think, but there was like hardly any wind. And I was freezing my arse off. But then again, I didn't have all the clothes that we have now. And so we were basically out there looking like the Michelin Man. And we told each other back then, we were like, first thing that moves, we're going to shoot and we're going to get the heck out of here.
Yeah. And we held to that.
Yeah. First doe, it was back behind us and Christian was up to bat. But the thing is like the rifle or the way the doe was positioned and Christian was on like my right side. And so he was like, you got to duck. And then of course he just swung the gun over and I was just kind of like, I couldn't even look, but I was just ducking, you know how, if
a good friend does.
Yeah. If you're familiar with like how the buddy stand works and if you were ignorant enough to like, okay, we weren't doing it like unsafe. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, have to make
But
that
like,
disclaimer.
I had to get out of the way, and then I wasn't able to watch the shot. As soon as he shot, I was like, "Did you hit it?" Because even if you didn't, like, we're gonna
We're
leave.
leaving.
Yeah. So yeah, back to Kansas. When we got out there, what we had to do is we dressed up, and then we got so cold dressing up, like our hands and stuff, like because we got to zip everything and tie everything. I kept the truck running, and so after we got all bundled up, we had to sit back in the truck for like 5 minutes. And I know all those northern people in the U.S. are probably like, oh, Oklahomans are sissies. We got -20. Well, listen here. There's something called humidity, and we got a whole lot of it down here. And I don't know if because kind of like when you say in Colorado when you've been down there skiing before with your in-laws, yeah, there's a different type of cold, right?
It's like a dry cold. Like when you get on the slopes, you're also moving quite a bit, so it's probably a little bit different. But when you get on the slopes, it can be 5 or 10 degrees, and you can be in like one thermal t-shirt and be like pretty decent if you're walking around and stuff. In Kansas, it was just different. Like you step out of the car and like bare skin, if the wind hits your bare skin, you're like, that's gonna fall off. Like it hurts to get hit by the wind. So like
Oh yeah.
you're walking and you're just like trying to hide your face behind things. It's not like that when you're skiing and stuff. It's not like that in the other climates. I'm sure you can die just as easily, but it was not as enjoyable. It was not very enjoyable to walk out in Kansas.
The wind was ripping when we went.
Oh, it was ripping.
It was pretty bad. So our plan was to hang in a saddle, but we were like, listen, if we have gloves to even like, if we have to take off our gloves to whether it be to wrap the shikars around the tree or hang
our
the
platform.
Yeah, hang the platform or whatever it may be. It's just like our fingers are going to get cold, and even if we have hot hands, it's just going to be uncomfortable. So what we did is we dragged the blind out there, and we're just going to try to shove it up into the thicket as far as possible and just kind of overlook the field, and hopefully we can find a place that has the standing beans still relatively close to the edge, and that's kind of what we did. And we even though it was blizzarding, we still tried to play the wind a little bit. But on the way, Christian decided to drop the mic.
No, we got these new clip-on mics, and they kind of record directly into the camera. And I had one clipped on me, and I had one clipped on Jake. And Jake was like setting all the seats in the blind down, and he was like, I looked at him, I was like, "Where's your mic?" He's like, "It's in my shirt." I was like, "Let's check real quick." And you checked it, like it wasn't in there. And we're like freezing, and the more cold you get, the more pissed off you get. And I'm like, all right, let's look for it. Let's go retrace our steps. Well, we had like walked zigzag and stuff. You dang near walked all the way back to the truck looking for this mic because it's like a $300 microphone, and we haven't used it one time. We only used it like one time. And you got like all the way back to the truck, and I found it has a magnet on it. It was magnetized to the bottom of one of the chairs.
The thing was I was looking like a dang pack mule because I didn't strap anything. Well, I wasn't even wearing a backpack because you had a backpack on and you had all the camera gear and stuff in there. So I was like, I don't need to bring a backpack. The smart thing to do would have been to strap like the lawn chairs to my backpack and then just carry in the blind. But instead, I was just trying to carry everything, and everything was fumbling. And then I was trying to situate it, whether it be thrown over my shoulder or bear hugging it or whatever it might have been. But yeah, I guess in the process, it kind of got thrown around a little bit, but nonetheless, we found it and we got set up. And within like 2 minutes of being set up,
hold on. Before we talk about that, let's zoom out just a second.
Yes.
So late season, everybody thinks food. That's what they're going to immediately think when we're talking about where we're hunting. Coldest day we've ever hunted, coldest day we may ever hunt, especially with the wind chill.
I hope so.
What was
in Oklahoma?
I hope so. What was the strategy on what we were trying to target and hit? Based on these late season patterns, we know deer are going to be hitting food, but what were you trying to do?
So what I was trying to do, and I don't know if this is kind of what you're wanting to talk about, I was trying to go to a different spot. That was probably an hour and a half further north of where we actually ended up hunting. But because of the snow squall, we were like, listen, it's going to take us an extra 30, 45 minutes just to get to this spot. And then the way the weatherman said, everything is supposed to play out is it's supposed to be even worse after dark. So it's just like there's a very little chance of us getting home from what the news was saying. But so we decided to go an hour closer to where we live, or where I live, where you were visiting, and hunt there. But yeah, we were trying to hunt the food source, and then other than that, I mean, this was a spot that historically had success.
Yeah, historically, a friend of a friend. I was going to say, I got to give a round of applause for Kansas Parks and Wildlife for leaving a bunch of standing beans. That was very nice of them. They left so Kansas, one of the biggest differences that I noticed about Kansas as soon as we started hunting up there was like their ag program that they had on public ground.
Oh, it's kick. It's bad to
awesome.
the bone.
Like not every field. There's a lot of fields that weren't, but you're going to be able to find good standing beans in the early part of September. And the good thing is, the late part of the season, they don't just go and murder them down to the ground and cut them down to nothing. They leave strips for the deer. And you know what? They better when you're paying $600 for a license.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, I'm like, I want my $600 to go to a strip of beans right here.
They better hang my damn stand for me, you know?
Yeah. But no, they have a fantastic ag program. And we knew, like, hey, if we can find some food, if these deer don't want to freeze to death in a bed, they're going to have to get up and eat. And thankfully, when we stepped out in the field, we're like, okay, there's a lot of standing beans here. Let's get it.
Yep. Yeah.
So now you can get into what we were doing.
Yeah, that was definite confidence booster. But yeah, we finally got everything situated. And the way I am, the grass is always greener on the other side. And so the whole time, and I think you even said something, you were like, listen, it's not going to matter whether we move the blind 10 yards or not, you know, whether we're going to be successful or not. And the whole time I was like, man, I think we need to move, just kind of tuck it back there. That way we can see a little bit further to the right, just in case something comes. Like, that's the way my mind works. And then all of a sudden we just see like 9 doe and then this giant buck, like 400 yards across this field, eating beans. And I turned and I was like, yeah, we're not moving.
I was like still getting my camera situated on the tripod. And Jake's like, there's a deer. And if anyone knows Jake, your eyesight's not good. So if you can see
I got glasses now. I'm just saying.
There must have been a lot of deer.
with those suckers on, boy.
There must have been a lot of deer.
Oh, there was.
In that field. And Jake's like, there's some deer. Like, oh, one of them's a buck. One of them's a big buck. And of course, I dropped the camera. I'm like trying to get my binos out.
You accidentally like breathe into your binos and the lens freezes. And you're like, damn it.
Yeah, no, but you were right. That was a fantastic buck. Late season might as well have been a 200 incher.
I would argue that was one of the biggest deer we've seen all year.
Frame wise, for sure.
Yeah.
Describe that buck for us. Because, by the way, those does look bigger than a lot of Oklahoma bucks I've seen. They look like squares.
Yeah. They were huge. They definitely didn't have a bean shortage throughout the year for sure. But no, that buck, immediately you could tell it was a buck, A, because of the body, and then B, it's just like, I think I see like a silhouette or like the resemblance of a rack. And when I threw up my binos, I was like, there's no shrinkage whatsoever, because it was just like a big I think he's a mainframe 8. And of course he was a ways out there, but I didn't get a good look at the eye guards or even if he had any. But that man was probably, I don't even know how wide, like at least 20 inches wide.
See, I hate throwing those terms out because people are like, oh, yeah, I bet 20 inches wide. Because I'm always like, I know that deer's like 20 inches wide. And then I hold it, I'm like 17. Well, I killed a buck that was 19 and a quarter. This buck was wider than that, for sure. Like, he was wide at his tips. Yeah. Yep. What I noticed about him was good eye guards, good 2s, a good 3 on one side, and then the other 3 was maybe 4 inches, a little shorter than the other one. But, you know, just to me was like a textbook picture of what 130-ish inch 8 looks like. Great buck.
Beautiful thing to see like 2 minutes into the hunt, especially when it's like super, super cold. It's like worth it. Immediately worth it.
Yeah, you got that instant feedback. But those deer were kind of working I would call it just like almost like a landing strip. It's just a very thin strip of timber in between 2 bean fields. And they were getting after it on that side, and they weren't going to move very far.
No. I'm pretty sure like when they first came out, they only worked with probably 30, maybe 40 yards, and then they tucked back into the timber, which they were there for quite a while.
Yeah, and we noticed kind of when we were sitting there was different bucks peeking in and out. Like there'd be like a little 6-point come out, and then I think there was like a couple basket racks, 8s. We saw 3 or 4 different bucks. I think we counted it up. We saw over. I was like 15 or 20 deer that evening. It was a fantastic evening.
It was good.
It was really, really good. We did have one really close call. Really close call. You're like, there's a, like, what was it? Probably
Well,
20
it scared me
minutes
more than
before
anything
dark.
because I was like, of course, like, yeah, it was like probably 20, 30 minutes before dark. And I just happened to look to my left because for the most part, Christian was looking out kind of on the right side in the field. And we were kind of positioned where we could possibly shoot into the timber a little ways. And so I was just kind of scanning that pretty religiously. And all of a sudden, right between like the timber and like this tall grass area, not tall grass, it was like the cockaburs. And I'm just saying, little side note, I've never seen cockaburs that damn tall because
Oh
like they were like nipple high. And at
they
first
looked
I was
like they were
oh,
planted intentionally.
yeah, because across the field I was like, oh, there's some pretty good beans over there. And then you get over there and it's like, these are cockaburs, which again, my eyesight ain't very good. But anyways, he was like kind of roaming around on the outskirts of those. And of course, with the low hanging limbs and all that stuff, I didn't know buck doe could have been anything, but I just seen a little bit of movement and I was like, right there, right there, right there. And I threw my binos up and got your attention and seen it was a spike. And then our mindset going in was anything that pops out, especially it being this cold, we're going to try to take a stab at. But I had a little bit of mixed feelings on that.
It was 4 days before the end of the season. Jake we already handshake deal that Jake's like, I'm not coming back. He was trying to convince Peyton to go with us too, but I was like, listen, I'll go with you, but this is the last time I'm going. You're like, it doesn't matter. This is the last time I'm going too. So, and you always do this. We always do this before hunts. You said Spike, Forky, Big 8, Doe. I don't care.
You got to hype each other up.
You said, I'm shooting whatever comes out. First one, you're like, I'm going to fill this tag. Spike comes out. Jake immediately after seeing that Big 8 and all them does, he's like, no, I got to wait. Something could be behind it. I'm like, and I'm over in the back like, shoot.
Yeah, you already had the camera rolling like, here we go. No.
I mean, why not? That's how I looked at it. I was like, I mean, should you shoot a spike? Probably not. In that situation, though, it would have been cool to harvest a deer in the coldest day ever.
It would have. But if that thing would have actually came in, spoiler alert, it didn't come in. But if that thing would have actually came in, and if I would have shot it, I would have walked up to it and I would have been like, that was fun. But damn, did you see that 8 across the field? Immediately, that would have been the talking point.
Right.
And so I mean, I just didn't want to do that. And so it kind of, I don't know if it's seen us or just seen the blind flapping in the wind and was just like, I don't think so. And it kind of ran towards the middle of the field and kind of just wandered out of our lives after that. And that kind of wrapped up the first evening.
Yeah, that one probably got 70-ish yards from us, and he was gone after that. And we got back to the truck. Took about 40 minutes to unthaw. Went and got some Taco Bell, and I was like, well, that was a pretty successful hunt.
For sure.
Would we have been going up there for a 3 or a 4 day trip? I would have felt extremely confident for the next few days based on that intel we were able to get. But it was just one of those kind of one and dones. But the story's not over.
I was about to say.
You decided to go back solo.
Yeah. That was the day after too. Yeah. Because you had a Christmas, so you couldn't come back. And then I tried to talk Peyton into it, and Peyton was like, nah.
So what were you thinking on you obviously had a strategy going back the second time based on what we had learned on the first trip. What were you thinking that these deer did wrong, or somewhere that you think you could plug in and kind of capitalize on what they were doing?
So I'm pretty sure the only reason we didn't set where I assumed the deer came out, because you were talking about you were kind of wanting to like set up over here, or you were wanting to set up over here because it's kind of where almost the majority of the thicket, it was almost like a pretty good little pinch point right there. And you were wanting to set up, but the way the wind was blowing, it wouldn't have been a good idea. So we set up across that field. Well, when we were over there and where all those deer came out, the big buck or that Big 8 or whatever came out, there was like this landmark tree. It was a big old I don't know what kind of tree it
It
was.
looked like a cottonwood. It was huge.
Yeah, it was.
It wasn't on the
it was
river,
very
so I don't
big.
think it was a cottonwood, but that sucker was huge.
Yeah. And so we kind of mapped that or dropped a pin there on Onyx, and just in case I went back the next morning, which I didn't. But the next evening I went there and kind of same strategy. It was still super, super cold and pretty dang windy. So I was like, I'm not going to hang in a saddle. I'm not that much of a man. And so I drug the blind there, and I actually got it positioned fairly well. Like it was a lot more tucked in than I could have asked, because when I first went there, I was like, listen, I'm going to try to set up this blind on the edge. And if that don't work, I'm just going to set on the ground, because it looks super, super thick over there. And besides that big O, let's say it was cottonwood, besides that big O landmark cottonwood, the rest of the trees kind of look pretty immature. So even if I wanted to set in the saddle, I felt at the time it would have been too thick. But anyways, I got it nice and tucked in, and I was actually pretty proud of it because it was like super windy and I didn't have any stakes like that would have mattered. And I tucked it like pretty far in there, and it was underneath some like low hanging limbs. So with the wind blowing and stuff, it like stayed fairly still, but it kind of tore it up a little bit, ripped some holes and stuff. And yeah, I probably got out there like 2:30 or 3, and it gets dark at like 5:30 because I'm not going to sit out there very long. Trying to think what happened.
You had to put your foot on the blind, bow on the blind.
Oh yeah. So the way I positioned, it was like probably 40 or 50 yards on the right side of that big old landmark tree on where they came out at, because we were thinking that when we first saw them, it was just a little bit, maybe 30 yards to the right of that landmark tree. And I was like, I don't want to be too close, especially in a blind that just now got popped up. So if I can get them like 40, 50 yards when they first came out, then I would feel really comfortable about that. I don't know about the shot so much because, late season, you haven't been shooting your bow as much because you've been hunting. So like that's kind of iffy. But if this was to even give me a chance, I was like, I need to be at the 40, 50 yard mark, I would think. So that's what I did. And early in the day, I can kind of see across the field. And where I walked in at, I seen probably six or seven does just kind of run from where that thicket we were sitting in front of to basically where my truck was. And that's all I seen of them. And then about 45 minutes before dark, I see like this head kind of peeking around this little bush right on the edge of the timber. And I'm like, oh, there's a deer. And so I'm kind of like getting in position. I scoot my chair to the very corner. And because I was thinking it's going to be in the corner where I can kind of see. And as soon as I see a deer, I'm just going to drop down on my knees, because the way the blind was positioned, I had to be on my knees to like be able to draw back and have enough room for all that stuff. And so I was kind of getting everything ready. But the thing was, as soon as I realized it was a doe, I put my bow back down, and that wind was really starting to pick up at this point. So what I did is I used my bow to kind of almost hold my blind down a little bit. And I'm shooting the thorn broadheads. Yeah. And they got a little fixed blade that looks absolutely vicious and it's called the Crown. And it just has like a whole bunch of like little blades that like spiral down that thing.
It's got like 8 little, if you counted them off each end, it's got like 8 little blades, and they like catch on anything.
Yeah. Your fingers, especially.
I've cut myself.
But yeah, so I was sitting there watching that one doe, and then sooner or later that one doe turned into 2 doe, and then turned into 3 doe, and I was like, that's that same group. Like I'm feeling super good about it, because maybe if they just decide to like work down like my way potentially, and which they never did, but the sun was starting to go down, and at this point I was like, maybe I can like get out and like kind of hug the edge of this timber and possibly like try to scoot up maybe 20, 30 yards and make a shot on one of these does. And as I was thinking about that and just kind of watching them, and I don't have any footage of this because within 5 minutes of recording, my camera was dead because it was so cold.
Oh, so hard to keep the cameras alive.
But oops. So yeah, I was sitting there watching those doe, and then I don't know, it had to have been like maybe 15 minutes before dark, and all of a sudden I see movement fairly close to my blind, because the way the blind's positioned, it's like tucked up into the thick stuff. And so it has to be really close for you to kind of see in like through that thicket, except if you look directly out my right window, you can probably see 20, 30 yards. And there's like this little hill that has like this little, it's like a little, the top of like a little embankment, like a little washed out creek. And anyways, I see movement, and it's like 10, 15 yards from my blind, like in the thicket directly in front of me. And so immediately, I don't know what it is, buck doe, but at the point, I really didn't care, because anything was hopefully getting an arrow flung at it. I dropped down on my knees fairly quickly, and I was trying to like pick up my bow. Well, when I said I used my bow to kind of like hold down the blind a little bit, I guess when the flap, like the window flap, was inside the blind, it was like kind of flapping on my broadhead. And I didn't realize this, but it got like completely twisted around the broadhead, and it was tangled like good. And so as I was reaching for my bow, I was like, damn it. So I set my bow down, and I was using both hands to kind of like trying to peel off that window flap. And I know it sounds made up, because like it's just the most unfortunate situation. And so like as I'm doing that, this deer is like, I don't know if he sees me like drop down on my knees real quick or what, but like he's moving fast. And so I'm trying to move fast too, because my fear was he's just going to run out into the field, like trot out his way out in the field, and then just not leave me with a shot. So I was trying to act quick. Well, he got to the edge of that timber, and he got to the edge of that timber. Like half of his body was probably sticking out of the that tree line, and he just looks directly at the blind, because it's sitting there kind of like halfway flapping. He's just staring in my soul, like literally 10, 15 yards, and he came out of a place where I wasn't expecting him to come out.
10 or 15 yards.
Literally. I promise
that
you.
is so close on the ground, by the way.
I know.
That's one thing out of a tree.
A brand new blind too. Just popped.
He's probably like,
well, that's the thing. I don't think he noticed it until he was like, I think he was going to like trot up to the tree line, and then you know how those bucks do, just kind of like watch for a second, watch the field, kind of scan, see what's going on before they step out. And I think that's what he was doing. But he was directly broadside, 10, 15 yards. Like, I'm not kidding. Like maximum distance, like 20 yards, if that. Because when I was setting up my blind, I kind of walked up and down that little tree line, probably 30, 40 yards, just looking for like a hot trail that they could possibly use. And then I kind of based how far I was going to set up my blind off that. And of course there was snow on the ground, so I was just looking for the biggest trail. Like there's footprints everywhere, but I was just like, okay, I just got to base it off something. It's going to be this. And anyways, long story short, I'm sitting there messing with the flap, trying to get it untangled. Well, he like runs out there, stops, looks at me because he sees the blind moving. And at this point, I'm just like stopping and just like staring at him. And he kind of like starts turning super slowly and then trots like 5-10 yards back into the thicket. And I still have a shooting lane at this point. And finally, I get it untangled. But by the time I get it untangled, he's already kind of like halfway, like fast walking around me. And it looks like he's going to try to like wrap around me to try to win me, just kind of see what I am. Like, cause he's not really scared. But on the right side end of the thicket, I just have like a little slit out of my window. I don't have it open at all. And he's still probably 25-ish yards away. And so instead of like trying to open the window and spook him, just try to get a shot, I just sat there and watched him just walk like 25 yards away. And if the window was down and he wasn't looking or anything, I could have drawn a shot if the opportunity gave itself, but I just didn't, because I was like, you know what, this is like, it's already over with.
Describe this deer though. What?
Never
said
what
kind of headgear this dude was rocking.
His headgear, he was rocking he was just still a mainframe 8. At first, I thought it was that same buck, but he didn't look as wide to me. And he had very nice tines. One thing I do remember is his eye guards, and he had solid eye guards. Like, I think he was like probably a mid 120s 8. That's what I would say.
It's a big 8-pointer.
Yeah. I would have been happy with him for sure.
That hurts. I mean, that's kind of the summation of a lot of things that have happened this season. Like we talk about that segment that we've done. We've done a few videos of it, but but no cigar. The Hunter's Advantage podcast is powered by Out on a Limb Manufacturing. Out on a Limb is a family-owned company based right here in Oklahoma that makes tree stands, saddle platforms, climbing sticks, and so much more.
Christian, I have a quick question.
What's that?
What bites down harder, a hippo or an alligator?
No idea.
It's a trick question. The Ridge Runner 2.0 bites harder than both of them. But all jokes aside, we use these products all across the land on public or private. These help us get into any tree we want and hunt where the deer actually are.
Most men go to the grocery store for their meat, but these products help you go to God's grocery store. I have used the Out on a Limb Ridge Runner 2.0 and the Shakar sticks for the last few years hunting public land bucks, and I've actually shot several bucks out of this setup. If you want to support the podcast and get some Out on a Limb equipment, make sure to go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 for 10% off at checkout. Once again, if you want to support the podcast, go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 at checkout for 10% off. Now let's get back to the podcast. I feel like a lot of people are afraid to admit situations like that, but just like we were talking about on the last podcast with Pate, it's like, dude, 99% of the time it doesn't work. Like, it just works a few times. If it works 3 times a season and you capitalize on $3, that would be a fantastic season. This was just one of those instances where it just didn't come together. And that you had the right plan. I mean, putting yourself 10 to 15 yards from a buck like that, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, and like that's kind of the reason I didn't like flip out whenever he didn't just immediately take off running. And when he was walking the top of that little embankment, I was just like, I mean, at this point, as soon as I seen my broadhead wrapped and all that stuff, and I knew I probably couldn't get it out, I was like, you know what? This just sums up kind of my season right now. Like, I'm not like, I wasn't even mad, to be honest. And because usually, you know how it goes. If I like get frustrated, like after a hunt, you're usually the first person I call. And like, I guess you can send me an invoice for all your therapy sessions. But yeah, I didn't even call you because I was like, you know what? It's like, at this point, it's just another hunt. And I mean, there was literally nothing else I could have done about it except possibly brought stakes and staked it down instead of trying to hold the blind down with like my bow.
Good luck when it's negative 20 degrees.
Yeah, see, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Good luck putting a stake in the ground.
I don't know very many people who would like literally carry a blind to public and set it up just so they can hunt comfortably. You know, yes, that's what I'm trying to say. And words are hard. Listen. Okay.
Yeah. Hold on. There was a guy at my work the other day. He messed up the same word 4 times and he goes, "Sorry guys, first day with my new tongue." And I was like, what? It was hilarious.
He was trying to make the best of the situation.
Dude, he also was grabbing an image on a PowerPoint slide and the image wouldn't move. And he goes, "Come out of there, you pig."
But the thing is, he doesn't have an excuse. I got kicked in the head, so
dude,
sue me.
So and he's Canadian, so he has a little bit of an accent. He's like, "Come out of there, you pig."
Oh my God.
I started laughing with my mic unmuted and he goes, "What's so funny?" I was like, "Dude, you just called that image a pig." And he's like, "Yeah, that is kind of funny." But so was there a moment where you were like, "Hey, I should quit messing with this arrow and grab another one out of the quiver"?
No. Like I said,
like that
10 to 15 yards, any more movement than I was doing. Like I was thinking I could get away with it because it was already like, plus the time situation and how close he was. So I was trying to minimize my movement. And then also, like I knew I probably didn't have enough time to undo that and then get another one out. And so I was like, you know what, if this comes off, it comes off great. But I mean, 10 to 15 yards, there's no movement whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. You just hope in that situation, the best thing you can do is hope that your blades are sharp enough to like rip through the blind and just cut it all. And they weren't though.
I mean, they could have been because I never like yanked because I was like, listen, if I yank this, like my luck, this whole blind will start like flapping because any wrong angle and that wind started coming up from under the blind, it probably would have just flipped the whole blind up on top of me. And then that deer really would have went away. Yeah,
that's true. Man,
it was just a crappy circumstance that like, I mean, there was nothing literally I could have done about it except holding my bow the whole time.
That happens. I mean, that happened to us a couple times in the early season with good deer too. You know, like that 140 incher that you said came in on you with you first day in your saddle, and then I had that deer at 58 yards. You know, he just standing directly behind a tree. Sometimes there's just circumstances that, like, to be honest with you, what saved that deer's life is he came in too close.
Yeah, no.
Think about like coming so close to something dangerous that's what saves your life. Not coming in far away. Coming in too close is like, oh, I got him so close. If he moves, I'm running.
Well, that's the thing, dude. Like when he first stopped and like seen me, if I would have had my bow, like I probably could have like drawn back, and even if he would have like did that little turn like he did, and trotted 5-10 yards, like I still could have hit that shot because at that point he was what, maybe 25, 30. Like, oh, I mean, but that's the thing. But if he would have came out maybe even 10 extra yards, like because I anticipated him coming out like maybe 35, 40 yards, to be honest. And maybe it would have taken him a little bit more time, and maybe I would have had, or at the time thought I could have moved a little bit more. But I mean, that close and that quick, it's just like you're dumbfounded.
It's kind of like handcuffs that put you. I've used that terminology before, and people always ask me what I mean. When they come in so close, it's like handcuffs. Like they freeze you like Elsa. Like you can't move. Like they're so close that you're like, how am I even going to draw my, if I
damned
do
if
draw
you do,
my
damned
bow,
if you don't.
Yeah. It's like if I don't draw my bow, they're going to walk away. If I do draw my bow, they're going to run away. Which one would you rather have?
Yeah.
It's one of those situations.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that basically wrapped up that hunt. Like after he kind of ran off, I unzipped the back because I was like, he didn't like run off. He walked that ridge line, obviously stopping momentarily to like look at me. But I was like, because I had a buck do this last year when I was sitting on the ground, it kind of handcuffed me like you were saying, because I was basically just leaned up against the tree, like with my shoulder. And he came 15 yards. And again, I couldn't do anything at the time. Well, he ran, and when he kind of ran off, he only ran off like 30 yards and turned to look back. And I just kind of kept quiet and kind of kept trying to grunt at him with the grunt tube. Well, the wind was blowing out of the east. And what he did is he just wrapped around. And by the time I realized, like, hey, that's possibly what he could have been doing, I seen him over to the left. And that's sure enough what he was doing. He was going downwind. And so when that buck kind of got out of there but wasn't really spooked, I was like, well, maybe he'll kind of like pop out 30, 40 yards behind me a little bit. And so I unzipped that back thinking he was like going to come around and try to wind. Yeah. And he never did.
Yeah. Man, that's about as much as you could ask for two sits. Like we had two sits and in the chips, like didn't work out obviously, but getting in front of them is half the battle. So we had a really good, from the outside looking in, we killed 160 inches of bone. 110 of that was Peyton's buck in Kansas. 52 of that was my buck, but we really did have a good time in Kansas this season. Like we did a lot of learning, and I really do think that we put ourselves in some situations and probably passed on some deer that we shouldn't have. And that's my lesson for the year in Kansas.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking about that. I was like, man, I would go, or I would apply for Kansas again just to hunt like the early season. Because at the time, early season was by far the best time. Now, I didn't hunt much late season, but I only went 3 times late season. And each time I seen deer. But that's the thing. Like, and we could possibly take this to other like states that resemble Kansas in ways, like obviously ag country, and just try to hunt early, kind of like you were saying, hunt early or hunt late, and like just basically leave the rut to those rut crazy people and only hunt the rut where we have the best chance, which would be probably private.
Yeah, I think that's the right approach. But man, I learned a lot about ag hunting this year. This is really our first go at big ag. I mean, it was nice to go up there and be like, man, there's actually food here. Like I'm not hunting a hay pasture or a cattle pasture. Like there was a lot of that too, but there was an abundance of crop. And what was really awesome was in the early and in the late season, it was like basically having tens of thousands of acres to yourself. It was like a playground,
Literally.
Like no one else is going out when it's 78, 80 degrees.
That's the
And no
best
one's
time
going
to
out when
go
it's
though,
negative
because
20.
you're literally like, okay, you might sweat a little bit walking in, but the thing is, let me tell you, you're walking on flat ground.
Oh,
Okay, you're walking on flat ground, and chances are you're probably not going to be walking very far. And it's 70 degrees, so you might sweat a little bit walking in, setting up. But after that, man, you're in a t-shirt and you're hunting deer. Like, that's pretty awesome.
what a good time.
It is a good time.
Yeah, Kansas was awesome. I don't want to get into next season before this season even wraps up, but gosh dang, we're towards the end of it, and Kansas may be receiving some more application dollars.
Yeah, it for sure will. I think
It was a fun season in Kansas. We got to hunt literally all three phases of the season: early, mid, early rut, and the end.
so. To rate it out of 10 and be very like conservative, right? Like, I don't think we've experienced a 10 out of 10 yet while hunting. So, what do you rank your time in Kansas out of 10?
A 6 or a 7, probably. Like, I mean, realistically, you have to bake in that there's a ton of people there in the rut. That's probably going to be most places that are decent, but that's the reality if you're hunting public land. The early and the late season, man, I had a lot of fun there.
Yeah. So let's go a little like one step further. I want you to rate early season, the rut, and then late season, all individually. So
the early season, dude, was like an 8 out of 10. Like it was my second or third sit there. We had that mid 140s 10 come by you and come by me. When that
was my first
out,
evening there.
Yeah, when that buck came out, I was like, man, I love Kansas. It's like September 20th, and I'm looking at a mid 140s 250-pound deer. I was like, this is about to happen. Little did I know that you ran into it too, but I'd say an 8 out of 10. The rut was that was probably a 4 out of 10, 3 out of 10. The only reason I say that is
I'd go lower.
The people. No, but I saw 160-inch deer, 170-inch deer right next to public. So did you. You saw a mega right next to public too.
And on public, I guess I did see that big 6 in that one spot.
You did. I think you take the people out of it. You can always say, oh, take the people out of it. That's blown smoke. But realistically speaking, you take the people out of it and give me free reign there, I'm rating that place like a 10 out of 10. There was one day that Carol saw 40 deer on public.
Oh, the deer density is absolutely insane, which, again, you try to stack it next to like Ohio or somewhere, like places we never been, like we don't know, but compared to like where we hunt in southern Oklahoma, like that public.
Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. Kansas is the best density I've seen.
For sure, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, late season was also, like, I only hunted once in the late season. I'm using some of your evidence in the late season. That had to be an 8 out of 10 too. That was fantastic. I mean,
from the times we went,
deer.
Yeah, for sure. I would say early season, I would give an 8, and then the rut, just based solely off of people, I would say like a 2.
Yeah,
and then, to be honest, like a 2 is generous because like the people just ruined it, and I don't know how to express that where people's not like, oh, whatever, like you just got to go where the people aren't.
Yeah, there's not in this instance.
No, because we were in a place that was pretty darn remote, like didn't really have, like was probably 45 minutes to an hour to the like closest hotel basically, where people could actually like spend their rut fairly comfortably without like camping. And we were still running into people, like even like there was one day I was like, okay, I'm going to go over here where we've kind of known there was people, but it was like in the middle of the week. And we're like, listen, people have to be taken off work and to basically be at the spot. Well, I went there and I was like, okay, there was 4 cars there. I want to try this other spot. There was a car there. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to freaking wing it and just hunt this random spot. And long story short, when I was walking out there, I heard a dude rattle. And I was like, okay. So like, yeah, for sure, rut 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
And then the late season, I only went 3 times. And again, we've seen deer all 3 times, but just from it being cold and like no one really wants to hunt, I'd give it like probably one down. So I'd probably give it like a 7.
Yeah. Overall, if I had to rate like Kansas Parks and Wildlife Department on their management of their land for the most part, I would say like is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like some of the best management I've seen. Like they take their plotting seriously. There's water, like
And you
all
even got
over the
stopped by
place.
one of the game wardens too.
I did, and I appreciate that. Like that's part of the equation, right? Like I got stopped by one of the game wardens. That was actually the day that I passed that mid 120s 8 point. I regret, but that was that day.
The amount of times we've said like a mid 120s 8, people are probably like, dude, there's no way. Like these guys are seeing Pope, like obviously probably not like net Pope and Youngs.
Yeah,
but
gross
like
though.
Gross, like because hell, leave nets efficient, right? But we're being like fairly accurate when we say like a mid 120s 8, and we know that's like pretty darn big. But
it's a big 8, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not trying to throw that. I'm not trying to throw that term around loosely because I know it takes probably what some people would consider a mid 140s 8 to make 125.
Yeah.
And I've got one that's 120, one that's 125, one that's 130. I know what a 125 inch 8 looks like. Like that's textbook. And it's a lot bigger than a lot of people think it is. But yeah.
You got a 140s 8?
No. I got a 125, a 120, and a 131 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit.
Got a 140. Where is it?
Damn.
I wish,
bro.
Yeah. No, but I was extremely impressed with Kansas Parks and Wildlife. I got stopped by the game warden. Nice as could be. Lauren was with me filming. She didn't have to have a license. They just told me it was that she couldn't point out deer for me. I was like, that's a weird rule, but whatever. She couldn't even see the deer anyways. So whatever. But no, I appreciated that.
Why does that one look like Bambi's dad? Where?
You know what's funny? What was I gonna say? Dude, the roads in Kansas, I promise you the roads on some of their WMAs are nicer than like Oklahoma highways. Like they're nice, like white stone gravel. Like you're driving out there, you're like, this is nice. Like you're not like,
yeah,
you know, it's just a great experience. If I could take 2 months off and stay up there and hunt Kansas for 2 months, I'd love that. That'd be fantastic.
So looking back, and I don't know if we've already kind of discussed this on previous podcasts, but what would you do differently for Kansas? Is there anything you would do differently that you kind of regret, or maybe you could
shoot the first 125 that walks by?
Yeah,
I think you would agree with that.
Yep. Amen.
No, I would do it very similar to what we did, just choosing the times that we hunted a little more careful. I would hunt a ton in the early season, late part of October, I would taper off, which kind of sounds probably counterintuitive to most people, but the best times to hunt is where the most people are going to be hunting. And I don't care to compete in that way. I love hunting public land. Like people could say, oh, you're going to go to private? Dude, I hunted private 3 times this year. I hunted public like 40 or 50. So we spent the majority of our year before the rut on public. But no, I'd hunt the early season hard. I would hunt the late season hard, and I'd have a little bit higher standards. I think I got a little frustrated during the, no, I'm saying with what I shot. I shot a 50 incher.
Okay. But
no, not a 50 incher. I shot like 80 incher.
I thought you were talking about like, you wouldn't shoot like that 120s 8 you seen.
No, man. I've realized shooting deer is a very high part of the satisfaction of hunting. Go figure. So crazy. I know it's nuts.
Write that down.
A 125 on public, that's a trophy. That's a trophy. That's not something one that everybody can do, but it's just a trophy. That's awesome. I would love to shoot a 125 on public every year. Even on Kansas. I think it gets in your head when you spend so much money and the hype of Kansas kind of engulfs you, like, oh, there's like you said in the video, the Mitch Rompala one, it's like there's a 150 behind every tree. Well, that's not
right.
True. That's not true, but there are a lot of deer and a lot of good deer too.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, and I know I said this last podcast with Peyton, it didn't help any when kind of like we were saying, like we were trying to hold out, we're trying to hold everybody accountable, like we were trying to be like 130s, is like the minimum we were trying to do. And then we had a guy down there that was, or a buddy, which Jay Ayers, we were staying at his house at the time, and he was seeing like 140s and potentially low 150s deer. Like
not on regular public though.
No, it
refuge.
wasn't. But even though, he was passing deer like that, and I was like, listen, if he's passing deer like that, then we definitely got to hold out. Like, why am I even questioning passing this 125 if he's passing 140s?
Yeah.
Get that crap. Again, knock that crap off right now. No, never again. Never again.
No. My new motto is early and often. Like, I just want to have so much fun shooting deer that I can have the same level of excitement on shooting a 100-incher and a 160-incher, which never will probably happen. But I did have fun shooting the one I shot. You know what I mean?
No, I bet.
It was. I don't regret that at this moment. But no, it was good. I really enjoyed Kansas. We'll probably do it again. We'll try to do it again. See if we try.
I want to try to put in for, like, honestly, next year.
Yeah.
In April, gonna re-up it. That's what we're gonna do, or at least try to do it. And yeah, I know you were kind of wanting to do a different unit, but I learned a lot, so might as well take advantage of what we learned last year. And so I'm leaning more towards like the same units, to be honest.
Well, we could mix and match though too, like take one of the good units one of the units we liked, and then go to a different one.
Oh, you can do that?
Yeah. You know how we drew up for 2 units? We could say like, hey, I want to draw it for X unit now and Z unit instead of X and Y.
Well, then if that's
the case, they have to touch.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know which unit I want. Even though that Beanfield's in that other unit.
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, we can talk about this off the podcast, but thank you guys for listening. This might be our last hunt talk of the year. I'm gonna go hunt and try to fill. I got 3 more doe tags in Oklahoma. Gonna try to fill those on a buzzer beater hunt this weekend. Hopefully, I want to get some of that like behind the deer kill shot footage. You know what I mean? Like
like get the exit of the pass through.
I think those are amazing, and I had that GoPro remote, so and you're not worried about putting scent on like, a feeder or anything when it's just doe. So I think I might try to do that, get a little fancy with it and try to do that. So
that'd be cool.
That'd be a really cool video.
The remote works.
I hope so. But anyways, yeah, thanks you guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Thanks for listening to us ramble and talk about hunting all season. Probably got one more hunt talk episode for you until next season, but a couple housekeeping items. Make sure to go check out the YouTube. We're putting out a bunch of shorts and a bunch of cool videos. We got a cool video on the Mitch Rompala buck that's coming out. Go check out the Instagram, the Facebook if you're plus 65 years old, the TikTok. And hey, we don't ever plug these things, but if you want to,
they're nice.
If you want a nice leather patch hat, camo, black with regular leather and black on black, go check out huntersadvantagemerch.com. We got some cool merch.
Also, since this might be our last hunt talk and you're still listening, then that means you really like hunting. And so if you really like hunting and you really like us, 2 things you could possibly do. If you're thinking about maybe getting a lighter set of climbing sticks, or you're trying to get into the saddle game and you're wondering what to buy or what to possibly get, I would highly suggest Out on a Limb.
MFG.
Yes. You kind of want to take it over?
Sure. So you guys have probably been noticing in the last few podcasts, we've had ads for Out on a Limb. They are our first official partner of Hunter's Advantage. We have been using Out on a Limb stuff for last 5-ish years.
I'd say so.
So that includes 4.5 years of not being sponsored by them.
But there's a reason.
There's a reason we use their stuff. It's 100% made in America. Matt's pretty much a genius when it comes to freaking fabricating things with metal and lightweight stuff. They're based right here in Enid, Oklahoma. Everything is sourced and made in the USA. And Matt and Chance are awesome dudes, but Matt is one of those guys that gets in Facebook forums and leaves his personal phone number. If a customer has any kind of issues, you can call him at freaking 1:00 in the morning and he'll answer if it has to do with a tree stand or a climbing stick or a platform. he's just one of those kind of guys, and we want to support him and help them grow. So I use our Shakar sticks. Jake's been using their Podium platform all season. I've been using the Ridge Runner 2.0 platform this season. They just got some awesome stuff on their website. We don't want to be pushy or salesy with you guys, but I promise you, if you get stuff from Matt and Chance Out on a Limb, you will not be disappointed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're a gearhead and you're worried about like if weight is an issue for you, or if you're just kind of looking for something new, like I said, not trying to be pushy, because you do what you want, it's your own money. But I would highly suggest it.
Yeah, and if you want to support us and you do want to save a little bit of some dough, make sure to use code HNTA10 at checkout. Once again,
you mean DOE?
DOUGA. HNTA10 at Out on a Limb, MFG.com. Get you 10% off. So that'll save you a little bit of dough there. So, anywho, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Hopefully, hopefully after we shoot some more deer.
Yes, hopefully after you shoot more deer.
I know you got to go this last weekend.
I will. Yeah, that's an off podcast thing. I will.
Bye.
He just loves you.
Thank you guys so much for checking out the Hunter's Advantage podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to the podcast. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.